and to Daryl Mundis.
Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. I also, as is the case with my colleague Jim Johnson, need to apologize for the absence of my Chief Prosecutor, Daniel Belmar, who's unable to be here today, also to my great benefit as well. It's been a true privilege and honor to attend this event in Chautauqua. I would also like to thank Greg Peterson and the Jackson Center, as well as Professor David Crane, for starting this dialogue 5 years ago, which has really turned into a particularly important event. This is the first time the Special Tribunal for Lebanon has been invited to participate in the humanitarian law dialogues, and we are very, very grateful for the opportunity to be here. Unlike the other international courts and tribunals that you've heard from this morning, we do not deal with crimes against humanity or war crimes or genocide. We deal specifically with terrorist offenses that occurred in Lebanon. The Special Tribunal for Lebanon was established by the Security Council in 2007. We've been described as the first international anti-terrorist court or tribunal, and we actually commenced operations on the 1st of March 2009. The Special Tribunal for Lebanon in many ways is the successor to the United Nations International Independent Investigation Commission. That's a mouthful. Goes by the lovely name UNIC, which was, can't make that up, which was created in 2005 by the Security Council to investigate the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri, who was killed in a massive car bomb explosion on February 14th, 2005. I should also say that that attack also killed 21 other individuals and wounded more than, or injured more than 230 people, and it's been noted that it's one of the largest peacetime explosions ever recorded seismographically. So we're talking about an extremely large car bombing, VBID in effect. On June 28th of this year, the pretrial judge in our case confirmed the indictment which we had submitted to him initially on the 17th of January. Amended versions of that indictment were subsequently filed on the 11th of March, the 6th of May, and on the 10th of June, all this year, which led ultimately to the pretrial judge ruling that we had established a prima facie case. At the same time, the pretrial judge granted the prosecution's motion for arrest warrants directed specifically at the Lebanese authorities, and as well as international arrest warrants, which were transmitted via Interpol, and which resulted in so-called red notices being put out against our 4 accused. We have a 9-count indictment. 4 individuals are named in that indictment: Mustafa Amin Badruddin, Salim Jamil Ayash, Hussein Hassan Onyesi, and Assad Hassan Sabra. I spent 11 years at the ICTY learning how to pronounce Serbo-Croatian names, and now I'm struggling still occasionally with Arab names, but I'll get there. These 4 individuals were named along with other unidentified individuals who participated and committed as accomplices the attack, the assassination of Rafik Hariri, and the murder of the others. The indictment charges each of those 4 individuals with conspiracy aimed at committing a terrorist act as co-perpetrators. That is count 1 in our indictment. And I should stop just for a moment and indicate that one of the other things that makes these type of panels rather interesting is I'm sure many of you know from coming here in the past or being academics or being students, there are a number of similarities among the various international courts and tribunals, but there are also a number of important differences that in effect makes each of these courts rather unique. Of course, I think the closest two being the ICTY and the ICTR, about as close to siblings as you're going to find among the different international courts and tribunals. One of the things that also makes the Special Tribunal for Lebanon a bit unique is that somewhat similar to Andrew's court, but different again in other ways. We apply Lebanese substantive law. We do not apply international law. So we have to look to the Lebanese criminal code for the subject matter jurisdiction that we have jurisdiction over. Similarly, with respect to our modes of liability, our statute is drafted in such a way that we can kind of borrow from both the international system and we can borrow from the Lebanese system, depending on the way that we need to formulate the charges in our indictments to reflect the best way that we as prosecutors categorize the criminal activity. So I think it's important that I stop and mention that at this point, because as I said, all 4 of our named individuals are charged with conspiracy. They are not charged as part of a joint criminal enterprise, which a number of the lawyers and academics in the room will appreciate. Let me talk very briefly about the other counts in our indictment. Mustafa Badruddin was convicted and sentenced to death in Kuwait for a number of terrorist attacks in December 1983, but escaped from prison when Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990. Badruddin and Ayash also faced charges of committing a terrorist act by means of an explosive device, intentional homicide with premeditation by using explosive materials, both for the death of Rafi Hariri and for the 21 other victims, and attempted intentional homicide with premeditation by using explosive materials, counts 2 to 5. The indictment alleges that Badruddin served as the overall commander or controller of the operation, while Ayash coordinated with the handful of members of the assassination team responsible for the preparation and physical perpetration of the vehicle-borne improvised explosive device attack. So those 2, in effect, served respectively Badruddin as the controller, if you will, the overall person responsible, and Salim Jamil Ayash acted as the actual assassination team leader, if you will. The other 2 individuals, Onyesi and Sabra, are charged with being accomplices to the commission of these offenses. These are counts 6 through 9 in our indictment. The indictment with respect to these 2 individuals focuses on their role in preparing a false claim of responsibility, which is an important component of our case. Shortly after the explosion that killed Rafi Hariri, calls were made to the media to pick up a videotape. And on this videotape is an individual by the name of Abu Ahmed Adas, who claims responsibility for the attack in the name of a terrorist organization which had never been heard of before and has never been heard of since. He claimed the attack on behalf of a number of Sunni causes, if you will, the Palestinians, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, these kinds of Sunni groups. He claims to be partially involved with them or acting on their behalf. It turns out, of course, as the investigation unfolds, that this claim is a complete false claim of responsibility for this attack. And that's important and significant because the 4 individuals that we have indicted are all either members or affiliates or associated with Hezbollah, a Shia group in Lebanon, which I think many of you are probably aware of as being a leading terrorist organization and one which has been designated as such by the U.S. government. So what they have actually done is set up a false claim of responsibility so that blame would be shifted towards Sunni groups when in fact the crimes we allege were perpetrated by the Shia group Hezbollah.